Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to all of you, and Happy New Year. We're back.
Happy New Year. Hi,
Yay.
everyone.
Hi. We're back on the Unsaid show, and we're really happy. We're happy about the new timing.
Yeah.
We're happy about this year, inshallah. And we're happy about hopefully, that there will be a lot of connection between us and you guys, calling us, DM us. We'll tell you all the information. Today, we're going to be talking about breaking bad news. And if you followed us last year, that's very odd, right?
Yeah, it was only
First
last
of all,
year.
let me tell you who's with us here in the studio.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sahar. Happy New Year, and I'm happy that we are back in a better time for the new year.
Hi, I'm Tamsyn Pereira. I'm still getting used to writing 2023.
Right?
I think I'll get there by maybe July.
It looks odd because I don't like even numbers. I mean, I like even numbers. I don't like odd numbers. So I just feel it doesn't look pretty. Anyway, we'll get over that. But anyhow, we're waiting for your calls. We're going to be talking today about how do you break bad news. Adults, children, situations that are odd. And we thought this would be an amazing topic to actually hit with the beginning of the year. So we'll go into a break, and please stay tuned.
This is Oman FM.
So we're back on the Unsaid show, and we today are going to speak and talk about how to break bad news. I'm going to give you our number. So if you're driving, please be careful. If you're in your office, don't let your boss see, but write down the number. If you're at home, please get that pen ready. And the number is 24949493. I'm going to say that again. It's 24949493. So, breaking bad news. And we're not going to talk about one type. Yeah. It's not only about really bad news. What I think really bad news would be about health or death, diseases, and all of that. But also with breakups, also with children, with divorce, also with getting sacked from your job. That's bad news if you don't want it. Unless you want it, then it's kind of good news. Yeah. But in relationships, Sahar, what would you say about, let's say there's a couple and they've just worked on everything and it's just not happening. First of all, let's talk about it, how we would deal as psychologists. How do we deal with, having to tell the couples that this is not working in a way. And then let's move into couples and then we'll move into children. Okay. Yeah.
I think when you realize something is happening or something is off, you need to be very careful how you word it. And then there is a kind of preparation process that you need to think about it, because even for you, it took time for you to realize that this is not working. Yes. So for the person who's listening to you, maybe they don't have that preparation. You need to let them think about it. You need to let them understand what's happening, why we reached to this point. Or if, as a therapist, I would say, if I'm going to tell my clients that there is something off, or you need to, wait, not go for marriage so quickly, or take your time, or postpone your marriage. I always explain for them, repeat it again and again, no worries how many times you have to repeat, for them to realize, to understand the point behind it. Then they can accept it easier.
That's true. What about children? And then we're going to go deep into it a bit more.
I think it really depends on perception of the bad news, right? So who's on the receiving end. For children, I think we can't say that, we can't generalize and say all children are too sensitive. Sometimes kids mask their feelings really well, or kids are told by their parents to not cry or not show their emotions, even if there is a bad news that's been broken to them. For children, I think it's important to make sure that they're in the right mental state first, if they're able to take the news, and we can't assume just because they're kids that they don't have anything on their plate or on their mind. Treat them just like we would treat adults. Make sure that they're in the right mental space, and that they have the resources to deal with it once they've heard the bad news as well, and make sure that they are able to reach out to these resources, and that you're not just leaving them with bad news.
Do you guys have a personal story about somebody who broke bad news to you guys? It was really bad. I think we should share that. I have one. You guys think of, I'm sure there is something. It doesn't have to be horrific, but I remember these are one of the times where I thought, what kind of way is this? I was just got married, and then a few years later I was trying to have a baby, and it took a little bit of time. And I didn't understand that each body is different. Because honestly, when you watch the movies, it looks so like, people get pregnant really, really fast. So I was like, okay, what's happening? And I started to worry, as a new mom and the first child. So I remember I went to a doctor with my husband. And then the doctor was like, oh, well, it seems maybe it's going to be difficult for you. Maybe you won't have children. Maybe you will have to do lots of things to have a child. There was no... It's okay. There was no preparation. It was like smack, And to the extent, I remember I actually started boiling my eyes out, crying. And she literally just pushed a tissue box. And I was like, what? And I walked out. I stormed out. And I remember my husband coming and saying, she's a doctor and she has a lot of patients. It's not just doing it, to you. Yeah. And I was like, that's like telling me, and I was working at the time, that you're a therapist, but you might have your own problems. But no, you should just tell the person, well, it's your issue, and you should go and deal with it. So it wasn't something very pleasant. And I remember this was in Australia. I remember up till today that type of breaking really bad news.
Because it makes it more difficult for you to accept the news.
Exactly.
To understand, because
And then
the
you start
news
thinking
itself
about-
is shocking for you.
Exactly.
Imagine the way they're telling you is more shocking.
It's very shocking.
I don't think it should take away the empathetic value if someone's breaking bad news so often. Like for doctors in their profession,
Yes.
I'm sure they have to break bad news a lot, but then I think that's even more reason to make sure that your patient is
Yes.
okay once they walk away.
That's very true.
It shouldn't take away
But
that
they say
empathy.
this is what they would say. And call us out there if you think different, but they'll say we have a lot of patients and we don't have time. But you are taught as a doctor, actually there's a whole syllabus. I remember it because I was participating in it in SQH, where you teach how to break bad news. And where also you learn how to have good communication skills. And all doctors are taught that.
Yeah.
Now, I do understand you can't stay forever, with one patient and like the patient will cry and then you'll sit down. I understand that, but you have to have a technique. And that's what makes you a good doctor, is being a good listener.
Right.
And being also empathetic.
An observer to see how the patient is feeling, how the family is feeling. Are they ready for the bad news?
But some people really, the moment you walk in, if it's I'm talking about profession, they make you feel like I don't have time. Like just get on with this kind of feeling. So you feel a bit, very worried. And especially if it's really bad news, if it's life and death,
Right.
it's really important to talk about it in a very good way, in a good community. And if you can't, because there is an option, you can actually call someone in that does that.
Right.
I mean, that's an option, because maybe you're not that kind of person, or maybe you have a lot of work to do, whatever the reasons that you'd come up with. So you can call in someone and tell them, could you please help me out in this situation?
Yeah. Fortunately, in some hospitals, I know in Europe, they have a department. Like when they have to give the bad news, they have a supportive team there. So then after the doctor give them the bad news, they can go to that room, sit there, and
That's
then
really
someone
good.
will come
That's really good, because after you get the bad news, you just have to deal with it alone.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you get the bad news, then you have to drive away from the place. You'd be thinking you might have an accident, you might have a panic attack, you might have so many things that might happen.
Right.
What about kids? As you said, Tam, I like what you said. It doesn't mean because they're kids that means they don't feel or they won't worry and all of that. So some people will say, you know what, it's okay, it's a kid, and he'll grow up and he'll forget. Is that true? We have the saying also in Arabic where you grow up and you forget, kind of thing. Yeah.
I don't think trauma ever goes away. It's just we learn to deal with it in a better way. But I recently heard someone say, someone from an older generation say, we had it so rough. Kids nowadays have it so easy. And I keep repeating that it's difficult even now. We just have different issues to deal with. So considering that, keeping that in mind, whenever anybody breaks bad news to a child, a teenager, I think first you need to make sure with how you word what you're going to break down, right? So you can't really use big complicated words to a 3-year-old. If you're trying to explain to a 3-year-old that someone in the family has died, maybe use softer terms, ways that the child can understand, and then make sure that this child has a comfort zone to go to. So maybe don't do it in a school situation where if the child wants to go to their room and sit and cry and process it, it shouldn't be too far away from where they are. So I get that the person breaking the bad news also has to deal with it, but maybe take your time to break bad news to a child, and if you can't support them, then don't do it at that moment.
Yeah.
So I think, go on.
Yeah, when we have couples, me and Tam, that they're going through breakup or divorce and they have children, we work hand in hand, because we believe that the couples first need to process the news for themselves to reach to that point that we accepted that we are getting divorced and be separated. Then we go and give the news to our children. At that point, couples are on the same page. Like they don't release their anger, they don't even project their anger to their kids.
They should be on this.
Yeah, they should
because some people are not on the same page, right? That's
and it
another
might take
problem.
time, which is fine.
Yeah. And then they might even fight in front of them and say, well, you don't know how to say it properly. And so again, it's a big thing, which one of the most important points, and it's the first point, is prepare yourself. So prepare yourself, prepare the place you're in, And we always see this, maybe mostly in the movies, where people just say it in the most oddest places, because sometimes they're so tense and worried, and they will just, get ready for it, but then they explode in a really bad way.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go for a quick break. Let's see what we'll talk about. I'm going to tell you the number again. So once you're back, you could call us and tell us what you think about it. Has someone broken bad news to you in a very bad way? So the number is 24949493. And hopefully one day I will memorize this number. 24949493. Don't change that dial, and we will be back shortly.
This is Oman FM.
So today we're talking about how do you break bad news. And I don't know, but I think after that song, relationships, the worst, right? To break bad news in. And I think it's challenging as well. Not the most challenging in terms of bad news, but I think you really have to be careful, especially if you know how the other person is. So when you know how they are, you already, anticipate or understand how they might react. So if it's an angry person, you're like, oh my God, they're going to be so angry. If it's an emotional person, you're like, oh my God, they're going to be so emotional. So how do you do it? We talked about prepare yourself, prepare the place. What about the connection that one has with someone? How can they do that? Let's talk about love and how it could, how they go, it will scar me for life.
As you said, it's very challenging, especially for partners and couples who used to live together for such a long time and love was involved. Because it is possible that you love someone, but maybe after 10 years, 12 years, you change, your partner changed, and then you decide to separate. That's a reality. But then, unfortunately, in most of the cases, one partner decides to separate and maybe the other one still loves that person. This is the situation that you need to be very careful how you deliver the bad news. I always tell my clients that just don't be in rush. Sit with yourself and even review. I ask them to write a letter and review what happened, how I reached to this point, and read it loudly for yourself. Even record it for yourself. Listen to yourself. If you listen to that news, how would you feel about it? Put yourself in their shoes. How would they react? How would they understand it? And then even after giving the bad news, take your time. Don't wrap it up so quickly. Okay, tomorrow we will go to the court. Tomorrow we will do this. Tomorrow we will tell our kids. After
Give it
that,
time to
even
sink in.
see it. It doesn't mean that you are back to the relationship.
Yeah.
Go to therapy and then try to help your partner, support them to understand and accept the news.
Yeah. In that part also, both partners both need to decide that we want to go to therapy. It cannot just be one person who wants to fix it and the other one is dragged in, because the person will just come for the sake of coming if they come, or they won't come at all. It has to be that you both want to work on this relationship, right? And also another thing, when you prepare for it, you want to tell someone, don't say, like, for example, you'll say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to say it, but don't think it's going to happen exactly how you think it's going to happen. Because then if some little thing doesn't happen, you hold, the whole plan, and usually it doesn't. Usually you think it's going to work, and sometimes it comes out totally the other way, or very rarely does it actually click exactly how you imagined, unless you're like really, really, really understand that person. So keep that window or that door that things might not be exactly how I imagine it going to be. You need to just keep that expectations not low, but just get ready for it. Maybe talk to a friend also. Ask a friend, this is what I'm going to say. Not the friend who's angry with the partner, because they were like, you just tell him. No, you need someone who's a bit calmer and understands both sides, and see what she thinks about it, and collect your courage. And one thing, it's okay to still feel feelings for that person.
Right.
You've lived with that person, and this is healthy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to go back, and it doesn't mean that also you have a great loss. Of course, this is after a lot of studying of the relationship and understanding that this is what I want to do.
That's a very good point. When you reach to that point that your relationship is not working anymore, it doesn't mean that you hate each other.
Yes.
You can love each other. You can care for each other. You can respect each other.
Yes, from far.
From far away.
And it doesn't mean that you have to deny all
Sometimes
the
it's
love.
awkward. You're in the same place where that person works, or you live in the same building, or neighbors, or you go to the same grocery
Mutual
store.
friends.
So you just have to, try and adapt with the new life.
And it doesn't mean that you have to deny all the times, all the love you had before, because sometimes we go back and review, what about all these years?
Yes.
So it's what a waste.
Up until now, we talked about how we need to check in with children or adults after we've broken bad news. But in a breakup, it's masalama after you end it, right?
Yes.
So at that point, you don't check in with the other person, right? What do you think about that?
See, this is what we were talking, that you might take time. That's why we have divorce counseling.
Right.
That even for divorce and breakup, you maybe for 1 month, 2 months, together you work on that, to explain for each other why we reached to this point. We review the relationship from the beginning to this point, and we support each other to reach to that point that we are on the same page, and we both agree that this is not working.
That's very important. I think people don't do that extra communication on the side.
That's true.
They just give the bad news and then it's bye.
And also, even if they come and they say, we want to do this, and then after the session, then they don't come back again. You need to come back.
Yeah.
Just even if you're, just to, until you are, on the safe shore kind of thing, because you are going to go, it's grief. It's a kind of grieving, and it's a loss. People think loss is only with that. Loss is also loss of self, loss of relationship. You go through the same system, which is quite interesting. But when we talk about songs, what do you think are the most songs that you've heard, or would you remember a song that really talks about pain and breakup? There's so many out there.
I have a hilarious story. I think back in college when I was dating somebody, they sent me somebody that I used to know. And I listened to the song and I was like, wait, is this a breakup? and then that got me thinking how maybe we don't only have to verbally break bad news to someone. There's a lot of other ways to communicate.
But that's very difficult.
I love that song. But
imagine that means you kind of felt there was something as well, because otherwise you wouldn't take it that way, right? But imagine people just before it was about, I'll make a mixtape.
Yeah.
Now you just, I'll send a link.
Yeah.
But I think songs are, again, why I'm bringing up that we talk a lot about music therapy and words and poem. And I think poets write a lot about breakup, not only about love breakup, any kind of, I mean, no breakup as in bad news.
Yeah.
And also bad news and how they received bad news and how it was painful.
That's an expression.
And how the heart really hurt. So I think when it comes to that type of bad news, we have to really understand our partner. All the bad news we need to understand, but that part, it's kind of even more because this is someone you've lived with a
Right.
lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, breaking bad news is not easy. Some of us do it really, really bad.
It's a communication
exactly
skill.
and send us a DM or call us and tell us. But I have one DM here. Let me just read it out for you guys because it's about the breakup. So I'm just gonna check it out. Yeah. So basically, this person says that I've loved this person for years and years, and I thought everything was going well, and then suddenly she came and said very bluntly that, actually she didn't say, no, she sent a message and just said, that's it, we're over.
Through message.
Exactly, that's it, we're over. And then she blocked this person.
Oh my God.
So I think the block thing is something
Yeah.
people do a lot. I think they're in fear. We don't want to deal, or we don't want to go back.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that's a good idea? I mean,
quite
unless the
harsh.
person's really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
quite
I feel like
harsh.
that person was not ready even for a separation or breakup because it seems like
Didn't
they
even
are
know.
afraid to deal with it.
Yeah.
The person who sent the message.
Yes.
So I block it, not to face it, not to confront, not
Yeah.
to deal with the consequences.
Yeah. And they didn't even know it was coming. I think that's the worst. When you really think things are okay and it's really bad,
Yeah.
but you didn't know.
Yeah.
So you're like literally in the dark.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that happens a lot. When in couples, they bottle in things for years and years and then they don't express their complaints if they're not happy in their relationship. And all of a sudden, they just say goodbye.
Yes.
And that person is shocked because they thought that our life is good, our relationship is good. So I feel like it's always good to express your emotions on a right time and give them warning that I feel like there is something off in our relationship. Do you feel it or not?
Yeah.
Communicate it.
What about if you guys saw that there's something wrong and you're the one who has to break the bad news to your friend? Should we talk about that after the break?
Yes. Let me think
That is
about it.
really, that's a difficult one. Okay, let's go to a break then.
This is Oman FM. FM.
We were just trying to remember exactly what the name of that song is. Whoa, that song is really
Yeah, someone like you.
Someone Like You. Okay. And then she goes, I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Really?
Not always.
Let's ask Control. Do you guys think that's right? Should she wish him all the best?
I agree.
Anyhow, call us on 24949493. We are waiting for your call. 24949493. I'm gonna keep on saying the number because maybe you guys don't have time to write it. Anyway, Tam, you had some really sad story right there.
Yes, I want to share how somebody who not a trained therapist, maybe she's worked on her own communication, shared bad news with me, how she broke bad news. I was in a different country when one of our mutual friends had lost his life to suicide.
It's very sad.
So trigger warning for anyone who is affected by the story, please reach out to us as well.
And I think we talked about this in our last social. Guys, it's a very important topic.
Definitely. And my friend actually initially called and checked in on me first, said, hey, what are you up to? Are you doing anything important right now? And I said no. And she said, okay, you might want to take a seat for this because our mutual friend has passed away. So I like that she checked in on me first. She made sure that I wasn't doing anything important or I wasn't at work. So I had the mental space for it. Thirdly, I like that she didn't give me details of it. She just said, we have lost our friend. And so I was prepared that it was about death. And then, you can then go into details at a later stage. But
that could have been
knowing
done
at that
all
point,
really bad way.
right?
Yeah.
And very, very recently, this last week, not my friend, but a friend of a friend who had also lost his life to suicide. The way she got the news was in a very bad way as well, via text. And you see the difference with how people, yes, okay, maybe the other person was also struggling with it, but I think we need to be taught how to communicate any sort of news, whether it's good or bad. Make sure that the other person has the right mental capacity to receive it.
That's true.
And yes, sure, you're struggling as well, but that doesn't take away the fact that you can't be a little more empathetic when
Very
you
true.
relay this news.
And I like that part that she said you might need to sit because all these details are important.
Yes.
We hear this a lot, or in the movies they show us that, can you please have a seat? Or they bring us a bottle of water.
Yeah.
They prepare us because they know we might need to sit, we might need to drink a little bit of water.
Yeah.
And all these things around us, details are important.
Yeah. My friend also knows that I'm a pretty anxious person.
Yeah.
So she knew that even if I said, okay, you have a seat, she told me immediately after. She didn't prolong it because she knows that my anxious
I'm like that.
overthinking
I wouldn't be
head
able-
would go from
Yes.
asking what happened,
is
what
it, what is
happened.
it?
And so it was quite
So
fast.
she prepared herself. She
Yeah.
prepared the location. She also did the connection. You know, that's very good. She checked in. She accepted your shock.
Yeah.
So she really went with really, really
And
good
then
tips.
lastly
steps.
offered to
Yeah.
let me call back, or if I couldn't call back, then to reach out to somebody else for help. So I had resources at that point. I wasn't a therapist at that point.
Yes.
I was studying to be a therapist.
That's
So
good.
it was a very, very good way to break bad
And very
news.
rare that it happens. I'll say the
Yeah.
number again if you guys would like to call in. So it's 24949493. 24949493. You know, also, thank you for that point about you're a very anxious person. I don't like it when somebody comes and says, I want to tell you something. I'm like, okay, but I don't know if it'll be okay. I'm like, just tell me. Okay, but don't be upset. Oh my God, that drives me up the wall. Like
assume
literally,
my
just
reaction.
say
About a
it.
lot
At
of
this point,
things.
I'm like, please,
Tell me.
because my brain goes, all over the shop and starts imagining everything, and then sometimes it actually isn't that bad, but because I'm so already, as you said, anxious, so I think it should be done not too fast and not too slow.
long.
Yeah.
But it needs to, get on with it.
Right.
Depends on the person.
Exactly, as well.
right?
But some
Yeah.
people really take forever to tell you, or they'll tell you, do you want the good news first or the bad news first? What do you guys do? I always say, tell me the bad news first.
Yeah, me too.
It's like, let me be the judge of whether it's good or bad.
No, I think in my head, I want to hear the bad news, so then when the good news
Because then
will,
your
will
mind
fix
would
it.
be
But
with
then
the bad
sometimes it's
news.
both not really good. I'm like, where's the good news?
Yeah.
I remember something that I had a very bad news when I was a teenager. I lost my grandmother, and I was so attached to her. But the way my mom explained it for me was really good, and it made me prepared for the death, before the death, because my grandmother was sick, and since she was sick, my mom was explaining for me. She was very honest
She's
about
preparing you.
Yeah, she was very honest, and she told me that, Sahar, see, maybe this is the last time you're seeing your grandma. Sit with her, touch her, take her hand. If you want to talk to her, maybe you don't see her tomorrow because she is old and she is sick and she might go. And it was first I was like, Mama, why are you saying this?
Yeah.
You know, she's gonna be all right. But she said, no, Sahar, you have to accept this. This is gonna happen. She is old. And then when she passed away, we were in the hospital. She came to me, she sat with me, and then she explained, and she said, if you have any questions, ask. I will explain for you what is this, where she goes. And I think that was a very good way,
Very good.
especially
That's
for
great
teenagers.
parenting.
Really good.
Because she had to take care of her own mental
Of
health
course.
as well.
And that was her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a lot of
hard.
load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think even she prepared herself before the death. She was telling herself that it will happen. And I want to, take this time to be with my mom, to touch her. Because sometimes you deny.
Exactly.
And with the denial, you make it more difficult for yourself.
Actually, that's a very good point. When we kind of know that we might lose someone, kind of have some kind of inkling, it's not as bad as when it comes like a shock, right?
Yeah.
So it's more, you're more prepared, as you said, you more acknowledge a bit, it's never you're ready for it, but you kind of ready for what might happen a bit.
Yeah.
So even if somebody broke the bad news early, it's also a good thing than later.
Yeah.
Right, as well.
I think we can always sense people's energies, right?
Yeah.
You can always tell, your gut instinct tells you if something's off.
Yeah.
So I think trust that gut instinct and maybe ask if you feel like something's wrong. So when we talked about anxiety and overthinking, sometimes something might not be wrong, but it's your spiraling brain that's
and the time
telling you that.
the timing
It's so
Yeah.
important.
timing is very important. Like you
Definitely.
don't go and tell someone when they're ready, like really, really tense. Maybe just wait a bit, but don't wait a lot until it's too late. But I don't think it's ever easy to break bad news,
No,
especially
it's
when
really
somebody's passing away.
Yeah.
That's very difficult. Also health wise, I'm gonna say the number again if somebody wants to share with us a story that maybe they heard. It's 24949493. So even health wise, to tell someone that you are very sick and you need to look after yourself, that's very difficult as well.
Very-
And that person coming to tell you, okay, let's say if it's a reverse. Let's say that person heard the bad news and now they came to tell you that bad news. How do you react?
I think people, if they cannot take the responsibility to break bad news, don't do it. It's okay to say, hey, I'm not comfortable with doing this, and ask somebody else to do it maybe.
Very true.
Because you don't have to be the one to be the bearer of bad news. Just let someone
And
else
some
do
people
it.
tell you, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And everybody throws onto the other one, you do it because you're the strong one, or you do it because you're like, they listen to you. But sometimes maybe that person really, really can't.
Yeah.
So what would be another solution?
I just thought of something.
Yeah.
Bad news that's broken via WhatsApp and Facebook.
Oh.
Because I have a friend who was traveling from a far off country back to Oman because his father had passed away, found out through social media, not through family. And I think that was the worst.
But that's sometimes
flight
you can't
journey.
control it, right?
Nobody could control that.
That's another
And
big problem.
the fact that my friend sat on that flight for the next 15 hours knowing that the family hadn't told him yet, but was coming back home to his father's funeral. Really bad way to find out. So I think people need to know that you can't just spread bad news or any sort
That's
of
a very
information like that.
Yes.
Hold back on it, make sure that everyone's okay,
Yeah.
especially if it's delicate information like this about death.
Yeah.
And social media is really
It is. It's
too much.
not
Breaking bad
controllable.
news.
Yeah.
But I really like what you mentioned about the person wanted to hear it from her family, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important if it's a case that you are not ready to give the bad news to your family, and that person likes to hear it from you, because later on they might say, why you didn't tell me? I would prefer to hear it from you. Then maybe you can ask a friend or someone who is better in delivering the bad news to sit with you, and you be there. You don't say it, but you be there.
That's a
And
good
then the friend can't say the bad
That's
news.
true.
Yeah.
Even with children, right? Sometimes they don't tell them. They tell them, "Oh, your granny went away, traveled."
Yeah.
And then the child just thinks this grand was traveling for years and years and years and grows up and they think, how is this grand never coming back? And was grand. So I think with children also, because you think you did a good thing, but the child can come back and say, you lied to me, you were not true to
Honesty
me,
is really
and you didn't tell, and you're worried because you didn't want to give them that bad news.
Yeah.
There is also this is a very, very sensitive topic, but it's something I think we need to even talk about more later. When children are being adopted and they're not told, because you don't want to break the bad news, and the person thinks, I don't want them to think that way, and then this person hears it from other people.
Yeah.
That's a really bad thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's I've
Because
heard,
they have double issues.
exactly, and I've heard so many stories like that. Let's take a break. DM us, send us messages, call us, and the number is 24949493, and we will be back after this song.
This is Oman FM. FM.
Sometimes people send us messages through songs, through poems, through movies, and I think she was sending a message when she said, I go back to black. That's very, very, very dark.
Sad.
Amy Winehouse. Okay. So tell me about children. Like, this is our last 5 minutes of the show, but I really want to know about different kids and how, when they're diagnosed in specific, diagnosis, how do they react to bad news?
Yeah. So going back to what we said about, having someone with us, like Sahar said, maybe someone else with us can help assist break bad news. I've done that with parents in a room who are unable to break bad news to their kids. And so I've just been the mediator in between their conversations to help them break bad news to their kids, but I'm also there as a resource, as assistance immediate. But then we also need to keep in mind kids who are not who don't fall within the neurotypical category, right? Maybe kids on the spectrum, or Down syndrome kids, or ADHD kids, anyone else. I have a client with who's on the spectrum, who has autism spectrum disorder, and who has lost his father, who does not understand death the way that we would, neurotypical people would. And so for a lot of kids on the spectrum, when they fixate on something, he fixated on the fact that he was going to take a flight to see his dad. That was something that was reality to him. And,
we have to really be careful,
right? And so every time you brought that up, it was very difficult, because that was something that the mom had mentioned to him, and it's really hard to go back on your word now once a child is fixated
and maybe it's her fear as well, you know, how do I tell him? So we need to, that needs to be educated a lot, and awareness needs to be done on that. And you were talking about this movie also.
I just remembered the movie Breathe. I will share it later on. And it was really nice. It was about a father of a family who has a disease, and he's going to die soon. And the hospital gives them the news, but the way they deal with it as a family is really interesting. Because some of the times I feel like it's difficult for us to deal with the bad news alone. And it's good to go back to the system, to the family, and together deal with it.
Choose the right people of the family. As well.
No, I mean the close family.
Exactly,
And then the dad even was helping them to by sharing his emotion. The kid was sharing his emotion, and they were all stick together. It was very nice the way they dealt with it, and they preferred to focus on the moment, not 6 months later that they're going to lose the father.
I think that's very important, and that's some things that we always talk about as well. Live the moment right now. Live what you have right now. You know, as we always hear that tomorrow is gone and the future we don't know, so just live in the now. With art pieces, because we usually talk about art pieces and mental health, and in our show Unsaid we always bring it up. The art piece that I saw was like Breaking Bad News was a little bit of a door open, and the doctor was on the side, and inside there was the family just like, you know, peeking through, and it gave you that feeling that the doctor was also not happy with giving. I mean, people think it's okay for a doctor to keep on giving bad news, but no, each patient with a doctor means something to that doctor. So they also go through stress. So can you imagine within the years how much doctors go through, therapists, psychologists, all the people in the medical field. So that art piece was quite interesting. Did you guys see any art piece about breaking bad news? I thought that every time I looked, it was more about doctors actually.
I think
and
most
relationships.
people go to doctors breaking bad news. Nothing else.
There's a whole course about breaking bad news. I wish people would take. But anyway, so today, guys, we were on the first Unsaid show for 2023. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you enjoyed it. We are here, me, Basma Al-Said,
Sahar Salmanian,
and Tamsyn Pereira.
And please join in. We'll be every Monday at 1 o'clock on Oman FM. And as we always do, in the end, we have this slogan that we're going to say on the count of 3, guys.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Change begins with you. Have a lovely afternoon and stay safe. Goodbye.
This is Oman FM.